Good morning. My name is Daphna Dayan, and I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, How QuickSTEP Combines Agile, Decision Management, and Visualization to Facilitate Organizational Change. I'm glad to see so many of you took the time from your busy schedule to join. Thank you. A few housekeeping items to get started. The conference line has been placed in a listen-only mode. If you would like to ask a question, please click the chat option and type in your question. We will have dedicated time for questions following the presentation. Today's webinar is available as a streamed audio broadcast. If you would like to attend via teleconference, please refer to today's session reminder for global dial-ins. Before we begin, I'd like to take a brief moment to welcome today's presenters. Kader Kulkarni, Practice Lead QuickSTEP at Sapiens Decision. Kader leads the business transformation practice QuickSTEP for Sapiens Decision. He has over 15 years experience leading projects for technology solutions and applications across diverse domains such as automobile, financial services, high-tech, agro-industries, commodity trading, and natural resources. Kader has successfully run large, multi-location, multi-million-dollar projects using Agile methods and has worked across Asia Pacific, the Middle East, Europe, and North America. He has been a speaker at conferences on Agile methods, business analysis, and project management. Rafael Goldberg is the Director of Business Consulting at Sapiens Decision. Rafael managed the professional services team of analysts and architects who delivers projects for Sapiens Decision. The focus of consulting is around business decision management, process management, agile requirements engineering, and Sapiens Decision product. Rafael comes to Sapiens from Knowledge Partner International, where he was COO and owned business operations for finance, human resources, projects, and vendor and client management. And without further delay, I would like to turn this session over to you, Kader.
Thanks, Daphna. Welcome, everybody. We'll start with a quick note on the context. So I'll give you a brief moment to look at the cartoon strip here. All right, so it's all about requirements and how business sponsors or business people find it difficult to articulate what they exactly need from a system. So the context really is that the business owners understand their domain, they understand their field and the context. However, they find it difficult to define the requirements of the business applications or enterprise applications which they would like to be built. And we've faced this time and again across many projects. So what are we saying here? The conclusion really is that it's not as easy to get all these requirements out there, and it requires some structured framework methodology which incorporates the constantly improving and evolving tools and techniques which we have at our disposal today. Before we jump into the webinar ahead, I would also like to say that we will be willing to answer questions at various points in time, and during the webinar we may pause at a few places to see if we've got any questions. So if you have a question, don't wait till the end of the webinar. Please send it out on the chat, as Daphna mentioned, and at appropriate points in time during the webinar, we can also take one or two of those questions.
Kader, I just wanted to pipe in here. This is Rafael. Thanks very much for setting the context. I wonder how many of our audience members have been on this side of the table as the business analyst or the system designer, and getting the sense that the business owner on the other side of the table just wants a tool to get the requirements. And in a way, you know, this webinar on QuickSTEP, I think that we at Sapiens Decision and you and I and the rest of us in the practice we'll keep referring back to this slide and this idea that maybe through constantly evolving techniques and tools, we can actually get fairly close to automating this process. We'll never get all the way there, I don't think, but I think the audience, I hope, will find today that they'll get a feeling that it'll make this process that's so hard a little bit easier.
Yeah. Thanks, Raphael. Thank you. So the way we've structured the webinar is that we actually use a case study which has Sarah Jones, who works at Blue Chip Corporation. Blue Chip Corporation is a financial services organization where Sarah has been working for several years, and she has an impressive past performance and record in terms of driving projects, driving initiatives successfully. So she's been a fairly successful person at the organization and has a track record of previous successes. And the point where she is at this juncture is that she has been asked to lead a project which is a regulatory compliance project for the organization. And the project itself has had some history in the past where before Sarah came in, and that's what is going on in her mind, because she knows that the project was started earlier with a different set of people in terms of leadership, and then for various reasons the project went on hold, so it was put on ice. The people, one of the persons who was leading the project was also ended up losing their job at the organization, although may not be a direct result of that, but that's all going through her mind, saying that if I take this project, will I have this or not, and what happens to my mortgage payment and things like that. So a lot of things going on in Sarah's mind, and she knows the context of the organization, so she knows how difficult it is to get the business people to give their requirements, how difficult it is from the analysis side to make sure that everything is captured, and did we know all requirements? Have we done enough requirements? That's a question which always has been worrying her. And then the development side, the people who are actually going to build and develop the system, test the system, are they doing it in the way the business would like to have? And the constant tussle between the IT and the business side in terms of how the projects deliver, what they had expected, the timelines, and so a lot of things are going on in Sarah's mind when she gets assigned on this project. And she had heard about Sapiens Decision and the situation she was in, where she had to achieve this project in under 1 year, which is, to be precise, it's 11 months and 12 days before the project has to go live. She had heard about us at one of the clients which she was talking to, and they gave a strong reference for us. And she said she invited us in and asked us how we can help. And what we are going to do now from this point onwards is describe how we approach this project which she had using our QuickSTEP framework and tie in her project deliveries and context at each of those steps. Now I would like to give it over, give the control back to Raphael to introduce us to the QuickSTEP framework.
Thanks so much, Kedar. So I hope those of you in the audience, I'm sure you're familiar with this scenario. It's one that we see play out often, and it's a time where we often come into projects. And Kedar, your setup of this has certainly raised my blood pressure and probably some of the folks in our audience. We're here today. I think many of you are involved in business transformation or change management. As Sarah said to us when we got there, change is so hard, and we agree. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about QuickSTEP And really, once we've gotten there with Sarah, we've done our analysis, and we've gotten the context of the project, quick step one is to implement a rigorous framework. So what do we mean by that? We start with the Zachman framework for enterprise architecture. And the reason we do this is because for us it solves a riddle of how do we know when we have a complete set of requirements. So we use it for our scope boundary and to start working with the client, and we work across the rows, across the columns and down the rows. So first step is to align the vision of stakeholders, and we employ row 1 of the Zachman framework to do this. This slide that you see now is a zoomed in picture of row 1, which is our executive perspective, and we go across the 6 interrogatives, and this is really to align the vision of the stakeholders, which is so important, and to get our scope, document, and sign off before we start diving deeper into the requirements. So I'm just going to pause here for a minute, and if you have any questions in the audience, please feel free to submit them to the panelists. And I'm going to ask a question myself of Kedar. Kedar, what would the deliverables, what could Sarah expect for the deliverables out of this first step, out of QuickSTEP?
Yeah, so thanks, Rafi. So what happens in this part of, or this phase of the project is where we are not talking to the stakeholders individually. We are actually having them sit with each other and run the session specific to each of the 6 interrogatives which you mentioned. So everybody is giving, each stakeholder is giving his or her view on what would they like to achieve, how or what, how is it going to be done, where is it. So all of these, what ends up happening is the collection of what they have said, because everybody has a different perspective, they have a slightly different goal in terms of what they hope to achieve for their sake from this initiative, this change management project or this compliance project, as it was in the case of Sarah. So we had the legal having their own opinion about what they should be able to achieve. The operations side of the business wanted to make it simple for their clients to get the data and information. So all of those contexts are captured, and it also helps stakeholders understand how other stakeholders are viewing this initiative. So although it's the same project, aligning the vision and trying to drive the common elements out across the audience is what we are trying to do. And the output really is a very simple list of what the vision statement or what the boundary of the project really is. And we also, if we find some differences of opinion across the same point with the stakeholders, we already know that there is certain lack of understanding about that particular issue or point. So we try and capture all of that and present it back to the stakeholders so that they now have a uniform platform or a unified view of what the project is all about.
Great, thank you. So it makes a lot of sense given that we're talking about change and transformation. With those topics, we'll often have, it's not the same old thing, so we're talking about disparate views, so I get that this makes sense to do up front. So before I go to the next step of QuickSTEP, Daphne, are there any questions from the audience that we should take now? And if we want to wait to the end, that's fine too.
Yes, Rafi, we have one. The question is, are the interviews and answers to the executive perspective questions data-based, or are deliverables Excel, PowerPoint, or Word-based?
Great question. Thanks. Kedar, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So, so we are not constrained by any particular format or tool. But yeah, generally what we have seen is at this stage, there is not a lot of documentation which is generated, so it is largely dependent on what the organization preference is. But what I have seen in most of the projects is it's a combination of certain documents which are Word documents and presentations, which is PowerPoint. But we also catalog the list into some sort of an Excel, or if they have a requirements tool, or if they have certain softwares which they are using. So we've encountered software such as IBM Doors. We have used some of the Agile requirements capture tools like Jira, or so it really depends on what the client has in terms of technology options, but that's really how they get the deliverables. Do you want to add to that, Rafi?
No, thanks very much. Okay, super. So, quick step 3, use a set of suitable models and techniques. And what we're doing here is we're going one row deeper into the Zachman framework that we started with in quick step 1, implementing a rigorous framework. And here we are zooming in to row 2. We're still going across the columns of the interrogatives, and we're now at the business owner level, and this is Sarah's level. And what we want to do today with you is look at specifically, we'll dive a little deeper into the how, the process, as well as the why, into the decisions, and then we'll also take a look at a model that we especially find useful, and that's visualization, and we really think of that as a model of models, and Kedar will explain a bit more of that. So this is still part of phase 0, the first several weeks of the project, where we're gathering the scope and starting with our first models. One of the so here's a picture of some of the models that we'll be working with the client. Two of the models that we want to look at today specifically, one is the decision model and the other is visualization. So to start on the decision model, that's something that was invented here, and we're of course very keen on it, and we also have a product around it. And I think some of you are probably familiar with it, maybe even use it, and some of you may not. And it's all about solving the problem of business logic. And so we're going to look at it a little bit and step back in time, where if you think back to this time where business had to go to IT to really get any information, when we've got one long string of code down in the basement, and Foote and Yoder described this software system as a big ball of mud. As we move on through the decades, you see here Kenilworth's separation of concerns, his diagram, where you're getting these different components separated and manageable. But what we find is that we're still struggling with the business logic. And why is that? If we look at this business process model, this is an actual example from a client where we started. And we have to ask ourselves, is this all too familiar? And I'm afraid that some of us say yes. And when we ask ourselves, is this acceptable? Of course, we say no. And what we're seeing here is a business process model with the business rules or the business logic in there as well. And so we have process and declarative. And what happens is we still can't manage the business logic, let alone the process model. And the reason is that it's absolutely everywhere and therefore nowhere. So how do we solve for this? We make this a decision-aware business process model. We work with the client to refactor the business process model, identify the decisions. You see here these blue octagons, those depict our decisions. Now we have a process model that no longer looks like, as our co-inventor here of the decision model, Larry, likes to say, a dog's breakfast. This no longer looks like a dog's breakfast. It's something that we can manage and understand and maintain. And so the question then becomes is, where do the business rules go? So these octagons, as I mentioned, depict our decision models, and here you see the decision model notation. And the decision model is putting these decisions into highly normalized tables where a single condition leads to a single conclusion, and we have atomic logic statements. And what that means is not only can the business author and validate and test and no longer have to go to the basement, but IT in kind can receive requirements from the business that are unambiguous and complete. And the model is rigorous enough even to deploy directly to code, and that can be done with products like Sapiens Decision. So this is one of the models that we're working with during this phase of QuickSTEP. And to see the impact in the real world, we have a blog here from Freddie Mac CIO Rob Lux. And if we read here together, he says, using the decision model, it only took Freddie Mac 17 business days to write, test, and deploy the 100-plus rule changes for Hurricane Sandy. And so what we're seeing in the real world is real business impact for their clients, and it's making a big difference in the ability for business to manage their business rules. So that's one of the models that we'll be working with during this QuickSTEP 3. And now I want to hand it over to Kedar. He's going to look at this next model that we're doing, visualization.
Thanks, Rafael. So the choice of models which we adopt, the decision model, the data models, the process models, all of that is very useful and helpful for everybody to understand what we are trying to achieve, what is the structure of the business, and so on and so forth. But visualization is a very different way of looking at all of these models, and that's why we say that it's a model of all the models, where whatever you have captured through these models, we convert that into a visualization. So what does this really mean? So if you go to the next slide, we've seen how technology is changing over the years, and now the new ways of doing things is much more interaction. The control is much more to the user side, in terms of usability, in terms of interaction, in terms of how they expect things to work for them. This is just, the telephone here, but what has the same sort of technology transformation happened with how we do requirements or how we still build software? So we still have these requirements, and now we have more and more requirements. So is there something which we are not doing right with the requirements itself? And that's where visualization comes in. What happens is all those piles of documented requirements further lead to specifications, use cases, screen designs, some more diagrams, and so on and so forth. So what we are doing is we are weaving this web of more and more artifacts which sometimes tend to not present a user with a simplified view of what exactly am I trying to get. And that's where we see that business users, sponsors, or people on the business side, they don't know what they want until they have seen something or they are able to interact with it. Just to nail this thing, here is a system which is to be built, and these are all the requirements in terms of, if you see these words, look at some of these words, things like overflow, supplementary data, backup system, peripherals, the software, the inputs, all of that. Now if I ask you what is the system we are trying to build, everybody will come up with some answer or the other, but I'm sure you definitely will not come up with this answer, which you will see now. Right? So that's really the power of visualization. So if we didn't have all these words and we just had that diagram, I think nobody would have any doubts about what we are trying to build. And that's really the power of visualizing all these requirements which we have found out through the models. The visualization process itself is fairly simple, and what we really are trying to do is, at the highest level, understand what's the scenario or situation which the business user is trying to solve for. Once we have that understanding, we get to the next level of detailing where we analyze this scenario and then break it down into the functional areas or the functionality of each of those scenarios, and then further iterate down to what we call as high fidelity simulation, which is basically all the aspects of the look and feel and how the users will interact with the system and use the software or the tool or the application which is being designed. So that's really what visualization helps us achieve, and it falls very much in line with how Agile attacks requirements in terms of trying to do smaller pieces and iterate and then move to the next one and then move to the next one.
Great. Kedar, thanks very much. I love that slide, proving out text to image, and I want to thank Matt, one of our visualization experts, for lending that slide. So just to step back for a minute for our audience, you know, when we talk about QuickSTEP and where we are, these models that we've talked about, and the title being how we combine Agile, the decision model, and visualization for transformation. Right now, we're still in phase 0. We've built consensus with the stakeholders, and the modeling that we're doing is skeletal. So the decision model, the visualization that you saw there in the 3 iterations, we're really at the analysis level. We haven't yet moved to high fidelity. We will move to that, and Kedar will point that piece out once we're in the actual sprints, development sprints. So just wanted to kind of set the context there, and also maybe pause before we dive into this next module. If there are any questions from the audience, I'd be happy to take one. Daphne, is there anything?
No, Rafi, not at the moment.
Okay.
All right, actually,
so,
we just had one coming in.
Okay.
Do you create inter-system linkage between the decision model contact system deliverables and the content hosted in iRise?
Very interesting question. We, you know, that I love that question. I'll take a stab at it, and then Kedar just pipe in. So we have done certainly for our own. So QuickSTEP we use for our own development cycles, for our own internal projects, and we have done some deep linking between the decision models and the visualization, where we're able to go between the tools. And it's actually quite useful and amazing, and we definitely want to expand that and get it more and more automated in a way. I hope that answers the question. If you have any follow-up, the person who asked that, I'd be happy to take that offline. Kedar, anything we should add to that?
No, I don't. No, I think you answered it right.
Okay.
These are possibilities which we have examined and checked for ourselves, and we know it works. So I think the idea really is to see if you have an opportunity to extend that and use it. You know, if you think that's the best thing to do.
Great.
Good. So so now that we've seen you know, the models and what visualization, and let's move to Agile now. And this is one of the misconceptions of Agile, which is that Agile is not for the enterprise. It's not made for large software projects or systems, and hence it's confined to the smaller projects. And the Dilbert really, you know, the strip there saying, you know, it's about just no documentation, start writing code. Another sort of misconception about Agile. So how do we use the principles of Agile for an enterprise level project? To understand that, let's very quickly look at what is the difference between the traditional and the Agile approach. Here what you see is, you know, the 4 phases of a project, typically the analysis, design, code, and test. And as we progress, which means time axis from 0 to end of the project, we finish analysis, we finish design, we finish code, and finish test. Assuming that all these 4 parts took equal time on the project, at this, the arrow, it says that we finished 50% of time on the project, but the question really is, are we 50% done with the project itself or not? We leave that thought there and move to the next one, where we are trying to understand how can we change this to our advantage without deleting or missing any of these phases. So if you look at what we have done here is, now the analysis, design, code, and test, they do happen, but the time axis is flipped, which means now you have these end-to-end small slices of work where some bit of analysis, some bit of design, some bit of coding, and some bit of testing is happening. As a result of which, if you ask a similar question saying that at 20% done, what do we have? The output really is whatever we have done so far is 100% usable. And when we say usable, it means to the business user or the people who want to actually work with this application. It is possible for them to start using it for that much portion of the project which is completed. Now that's really the core concept where we leverage Agile on enterprise projects, and our approach looks something like this, where you see these two circles. On the top we call that as requirements, and on the bottom you have the development. Consider this as one single sprint, and what Rafael mentioned, our visualizations until step 3 are really still at a higher level of abstraction. This is the point where we actually pull the selected priority items into the sprint and start detailing those requirements out in terms of high fidelity visualizations, where you see the next thing there is visualization. Then it goes to validation. This is validation again from the business users, the business owners, the subject matter experts who are in the domain and who are the primary consumers of the software or the application which is being built. Once they give their thumbs up or validate or sign off on that piece of requirement, then it gets into the development cycle where the development pick it up, the development team picks it up, then it goes through the testing, and then again the same set of people who validated, they come in and look at the demo. That's where more feedback around what was developed is given. If there is any change or if there is any minor corrections which are needed, or if there are items which they think now have to be explored more, that feedback loop goes back into the detailed requirements. Just wanted to also mention here that the requirement circle which you see on the top is one sprint ahead of the development. So what I really mean is, in sprint 1, the requirement side of the team or the analysis team is really working on detailing out requirements of sprint 2, whereas the development has started working on sprint 1 requirements and user stories or whatever format we have the requirements in. So there is a phase lag between these two, and that's why you see the requirement circle slightly ahead than the development circle there. Now, what this helps us do is, since there are these validation points and in some way sign-off points, it helps the enterprise or large organizations have structures and they have their own internal procedures and processes in terms of sign-off, in terms of documentation. So we are able to tailor some of those things into the process itself so that they don't feel that they're losing control because it's an Agile project. I think that's one of the challenges we faced at Blue Chip, where Sarah's IT partners were very skeptical about how they can maintain the controls and still have the internal compliance which they need to do, which is true for any large financial institution or for that matter any other company where you need to have those PMO and you have the forms, etc. The other thing which was very significant for the business side and the stakeholders was they were able to look at the requirements, sign them off, and then they were able to see the build requirements just in about 3 to 4, or our sprint cycle was 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they were able to see the demo of the requirements they gave 3 weeks back. That made a lot of sense to them in terms of how they started looking at that, the value which they were seeing delivered, and more importantly, the risk which they were perceiving that what if this project again does not deliver. So we started seeing reduced risk on the project. They were able to adapt. So all of these, the bullet points which you see there, are a resultant of employing this method of working. We also have some pictures from the project where, since you talk so much of visualization, we want more visuals and less words on the slides. So what you see here is a picture of what we call as a project wall. This really is capturing various things which the team is doing. So on the top, what you see we call as the card life cycle is nothing but your analysis, design, development, and testing. So you see those, the white cards there are the user stories or the thinnest slice of requirements which we are building and how they are progressing. If you go closer to the wall, you might see the actual story names and their numbers, which means you know what's happening in this particular sprint, what is already ready for the next sprint, what is in testing, and so on and so forth. We also are able to manage the time across activities. If you see the queue in the development side going longer, it means that we have more work which is stuck in development right now and less for the QA. So you can load balance some of those things based on your resources, based on the work. What you see at the bottom there is the velocity at which people are working. So we track the number of stories or the story points or the work which is being completed across every sprint or iteration. This is for the team to know how they are doing collectively on the work which is being delivered in every sprint. We also have two other things there. One is which says that list of people who were late in the morning. This is really a very different way of telling people who come late to the stand-up. The stand-up is an important aspect of an agile project where everybody talks about what they did yesterday, what they are going to do today, and more importantly, what are the challenges or hurdles or issues they are facing. This is the team telling people who were late that you did not come on time, so it impacted everyone. And it's visible to everybody who's coming in late. Just a way for the team to tell each other that everybody is important and they should not miss the stand-up. We have few more pictures on the next slide. This is again the left pitch. On the left top is where you see sprint 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's really our release wall. So this is where across the release, across the sprints, we know what work items are slotted. Then you have a picture of a stand-up there on the right side. On the top, the right side, you see on the bottom the pink and the green post-its. These are tasks. So the pink ones are development tasks. The green ones are testing tasks. And you see a blue line of cards there. Those are really the stories. And this is at the start of the sprint. So all the tasks are on the left side. As they start getting done, they all move towards the right. So you know visually what's happening on the project. If you see more work on the left side, it means that there is something which is slowing the team down. Towards the end of the sprint, if you start seeing all the items moving towards the right or the rightmost, which is done and tested, then you know that the sprint is delivering what it was supposed to do. And the last picture there is the team sitting down around a table and estimating stories using the story points. We also have the story point cards there at the center. So these are just some of the ways in which the entire team starts coming together. They start trusting each other. Like for example, the estimation session, we actually had the subject matter expert and some of the business people sit in those sessions. What they would see is, hey, I gave this requirement, and they were able to see how developers and testers reacted to that requirement, why the developer thought it was complex, why the tester thought it was complex. So what that helped them understand is when they give requirements or when they change requirements, what is the impact it has on the team and what is the work the team has to do for being able to support that change or to build that requirement. So that also strengthens the understanding of everybody across their roles and starts making the team closer and closer as a single unit. Some of the sprint level wall, the release level wall is good for more senior people because they are not coming in every day, but once in a while when they come and see the wall, if they know what to look for, they don't have to ask anybody for a status report or an email. They pretty much understand what's happening and they can just get the status in like 2 or 3 minutes just standing there.
Kedar, it's fun to look through these pictures. I remember well being engagement manager here with Sarah's group, and it was amazing to check in with Sarah's boss, really the business sponsor, and where she's the business owner, and to ask how it's going, and they would say, you know, it's really hard to start this whole new way of working in Agile, and it takes a lot of commitment, but now that we're getting started, the visibility that I get, you know, by being able to drop in on the stand-up and look at the walls and see the daily burn downs, and we know if something's going wrong very, very soon and we can work to fix the root causes, is just so powerful. And the team members, similarly, you can see here, I hope from the pictures, that they really have fun and they start working together. And I think it looks like the gentleman in the red sweater is holding some sort of toy, which is pretty unusual for I would think, for an enterprise development project. So a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and a lot of productivity.
Yeah. Thanks, Rafi, for jumping in. Yeah. So that's really what we were doing. And from Sarah's perspective, what she was looking at was the business value which we were delivering, and that was being seen more frequently by the business team. So a smaller chunks but delivered more frequently helped the business start getting the business value delivered sooner on the project. So you see the line on the top is the agile curve, and the other one, the gray line, is the traditional development curve. Similarly, on visibility, we saw all those pictures. So the stand-ups, the demos, the planning sessions, just the engagement you have with the customers and the business side, and the continuous feedback loop with the help of all the visual radiators of information, just puts this visibility very, very high, and it remains consistently high across the project. Since business value is starting to get delivered sooner and earlier, the risk on the project starts going down significantly as the project progresses. So what they say is, if an agile project actually runs to the end, it is definitely successful, because if it would not, it would have stopped way early in the cycle of the project. So the fact that it actually completed the entire cycle of the plan, it meant it was successful. And the last one there is adaptability, in terms of how the process is structured in such a way that it can accommodate some of the changes in priority, changes in requirements, and it helps the business get to what they really need at that point in time, or how soon they need certain things. So that's the priority. So what we are saying here is, it gives the highest value or just in time in terms of what they want to achieve. And we were able to do that on this project. So before we go to what we were able to achieve on the project, we have one more slide which talks about how the project actually was structured. So we had, you see the same two circles there. Those are your sprints, or iterations as some people call them, and a group of iterations, 6 to 8, would comprise of one release. But as is true in the enterprise, you need to have every release, before it goes into production, it has to undergo a UAT, a formal sign-off, and confirmation from the business side that everything is good before it actually goes into production. What we were able to do on the project in this case study was, around the 6-month mark, when we started development and the steps to 1, 2, 3, we were able to put in production the most critical business functionality, which was in line with what the compliance had requested, which helped them meet the mandate. Actually, not in 1 year, 12 days, or 11 months, 12 days, but much earlier, in the 7th or the 8th month time frame, they were able to see the critical functionality in production. And then we followed that up with a smaller release, the second release, where we actually added some more of the functions which were necessary and helped them achieve the mandate. Rafael, you want to add something?
I think you said it well, and you know, at this point we've done, just to step back for the QuickSTEP sort of full circle. We'll hit QuickSTEP 5 here. Before we do so, I just wanted to dispel one more myth around Agile. And actually, I'm going to go back one slide because I forgot to mention. We say down here, a refactoring release accounting for technical debt is integrated into the program, and that's something that's important to mention. You know, where you gain something, you might lose something. So we you know, absolutely advocate this, and we get to release early and adapt, but we do build in a refactoring release, and that's so a single release just to address the technical debt. So I think that's all I had to add. Let's quickly go through this, and then we'll come back and tie it up.
Yeah. So this one talks about is Agile really helping you save money? Can you do more work with few people? Some of the myths again, which are surrounded around Agile. The way Agile actually helps reduce your total cost of ownership is not by having few people and doing more work in less time, but it is saving on a lot of rework, a lot of misalignment between what is delivered versus what was required, and more importantly, quality product being delivered at the time it is delivered because of the testing cycles and the automation and just the orientation of the team. So the net impact of all of that is you're able to predict how the project will run in a much better fashion. You're able to put things which are reasonably good quality in production and reduce the rework and the changes which come in later in the project. To add to that, we just wanted to have this one slide around a survey, one of the surveys which was done, which asked people after they employed Agile approach or after they started running projects in the Agile way, what were the items or things which improved significantly. And if you look at these percentages, the red or the red bars show those many percentage of people thought that it got better. And if you look at the top 5 there, the ability to manage changing priorities, improved project visibility, increased productivity, improved team morale, and faster time to market. Now, if you look at all these 5, these are, I would say, the core items which anybody who's starting a project or running a project would like to have. They want to go faster to the market, yet not have the team feel that it was overworked and not happy about it, and get the most for their money in terms of the productivity and understand what's going in and what's not going in terms of visibility and priority. Right. So this was QuickSTEP 4, which is adopting Agile to fit the enterprise. Now I'll hand it over to Rafael to talk about QuickSTEP 5.
Thanks so much, Kedar. So we've implemented the rigorous framework using Zachman. We've aligned stakeholders using row 1. We've used the models and techniques during row 2 in our initial skeletal phase 0. We dove into our development sprints as Kedar outlined, and we've released to production, and we're on to the next releases. And so we wanted to wrap up here with QuickSTEP 5. We're often asked, what's the engagement model for this type of work? And the engagement model from Sapiens Decision is lead, support, mentor. And so what we mean by that is when we first met with Sarah, we started here with the analysis, and we made the recommendation. And once we got started, we kicked off with the training. So our Agile expert with the business and IT teams does an Agile training for several days, gets everyone, and it's not classroom training. It's really project-based training. People are involved, engaged, and we're able to start with a common understanding and common language. Once we get into the meat of the project, we're coaching, we're mentoring, and as the team becomes more mature and really takes on the process as their own, we step back into a support model. So we bring the experts to the table in business architecture, in business analysis, in the modeling, in Agile, and in the leadership. We build up the team, and then we step back for support. So that's our engagement model. And in Sarah's case, we were really thrilled. She leaves here with 2 months left to go in the project. She goes on vacation. And really, we found this again and again with many of the important people in the project who ordinarily you would feel like couldn't miss a day. Because the team is using Agile and adopting a very self-organized and everyone understands, has full visibility in the project, people can step out and the project doesn't just come to a screeching halt. So it's a collective leadership, and it's wonderful, and Sarah gets to step away here for the vacation. So to finish up here before we open it up to questions, we hope you enjoyed the QuickSTEP for our requirements methodology for the Agile Enterprise. We deliver early and often continual visibility to our stakeholders. We increase the alignment between the business and IT, and this happens again and again through the scoping and the models and the rigor. We increase controls, which is so important for the enterprise, and we speed time to market by getting the highest prioritized functionality out there. And that's a wrap for us. We are really excited about this offering. It's a lot of fun for us. We love to see our clients become successful. We have a great time doing it, and hope you guys can reach out to us and get engaged. We'd like to open it up to any questions that are there from the audience. Daphne?
Yes, hi. We have a few questions. Let's start with you, Kader. When typically do you engage in a project life cycle with this methodology?
Thanks, Daphne. Thanks. So the way the framework and the methodology is sort of designed, it really lends itself to coming in at any point in time. However, what we have seen benefits the clients and the team significantly is when we get engaged right at the start of the project, or even not even start of the project, when the business case or when the sponsors are trying to figure out what is the structure of the project, what are the requirements, what is the boundary of the project. So that's where, you know, the quick steps 1, 2, and 3 help the business and the business executives really outline the project very well. And that to my mind is the place where we are able to add significant value. However, we've also seen situations when the clients had finished some of those portions and they requested us to really help us in the build and the execution process, where we actually provided them the project steering, the mentorship, the model which Rafael explained, where we had our experts on the analysis side help run the visualization and the requirements piece of it, as well as the coaches and the coaching needed for the team to work in this fashion. So that's really how we think we add the most value.
Thank you. Thank you, Kedar. Rafi, this one is for you. I know of Sapiens Decision as a technology vendor relating to enterprise business decision management. How does your methodology relate?
Thanks, Daphne. So that's a good question, and I can understand why it would be asked. So Sapiens is a technology vendor, known as a technology vendor with decades of experience, especially in the insurance software solution space. And the way that the methodology and the technology intersect, as I mentioned earlier, we do use this methodology for our own product management, and that's really, I think, where it was born out of, something that we're constantly looking for answers, how to do things better, how to get our scope understood, and how to get sign-off, and how to better hand off requirements to development. And so we put all these pieces together. We added the decision model, and we decided let's take this to market and use it for our own clients. And so that's how the two intersect. And similarly, when we're using the methodology, sometimes we bring in tooling, and sometimes we use our own software for that. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Rafi. This one is for the both of you, whoever wants to take it. How do you ensure that the lighter documentation associated with Agile is educated to support long-term system maintenance after the original analysis and developers have moved on?
Right. So let me jump in, Kedar. So it's a very valid concern of any enterprise, saying that once the project team is gone, how do we make sure that we have enough to keep the system maintained and make sure that they are able to troubleshoot any defects or any enhancements which come their way. We are in fact currently doing this at one of our projects, where the project is in the next 6 months going to be ending from the project phase, and it is going to be transitioned to operations and product support. What we are doing and what we have seen work is the visualizations and the documentation which goes along with the requirements. If you have across every release, you have kept a docket of the entire documentation of all of these in series and in sync, so that the most recent one is available for people to refer to. So that's one, to have the requirements kept properly. The second place where we were able to influence was to have at the end of every release a small phase where the system is going into production, where the developers and the analysis team actually sit down and look at what went into production in that release and document on the technical side what were the changes which happened and where are those changes in the code. So we actually had code level documentation which was specified, and it is not a lot of it. I would say for a team size of like 16 to 18 developers, we found this effort to be like a 1.5 week effort for the development team, which I think is fair for a release which went like 4 months in the development cycle. So what was achieved was the code itself has snippets of what that piece of code is doing, and it ties back to the requirement number. Although it might seem like a lot of work, it's extremely important for enterprises. You are talking about projects which run for 1 year, sometimes 2 years in the project mode, and at the end of 2 years, the organization needs to have enough so that they can support and maintain that product. So we are doing all of these things where we make sure that it doesn't cause a lot of documentation overhead. At the same time, it's not even so thin that pretty much nobody understands what's in production right now.
Thank you,
I hope
Kedar.
that sort of rounds off. Yeah, thank you.
So we have 2 more questions, and they're coming from the same attendee here. Have you worked successfully with agile teams that are geographically dispersed rather than co-located? And second, what are the tools generally used for visualization? iRise and Agile Story Management?
Thank you, Daphna. So let me quickly start by answering the second question, which is the visualization piece. So we do use iRise quite significantly and prominently, but we have had client organizations who had their own prototyping sort of a team, or they have their internal the look and feel and the usability teams. Some large organizations have their own teams and they have their own tools. We don't prescribe any tools which you want to use for the team. We pretty much are able to adopt to what the client has in terms of technology support or tools. So, but given a choice, when we go in and when the client doesn't have anything, we go in with our own iRise licenses and help the customer see that they are able to do that. Rafael, do you want to add on this piece?
No, I think that's great. And I think the co-location one is an interesting one that we certainly prefer to be co-located, to have the analysts be able to speak directly to the developers and in person, but that doesn't mean that we don't or haven't done it when they are dispersed. And Kedar, I think you could speak to that. You have a lot of experience with it.
Yeah. So I agree. So preference is co-location, but geographically dispersed teams is a reality of today's world, because so we have to deal with that, and we have been able to run large agile projects across geographies. The key really when you do that is to make sure that you don't have concentration of one function at one location. So what I mean by that is you can't have the requirements team in the US and the testing team in Singapore and the development team in somewhere in Europe. I mean, that really is very, very difficult to manage. If you have some portion of all of these teams sitting across those locations, then the project team feels that they are working on a project rather than, they don't know who's giving requirements, they don't know who's testing, or vice versa. So that's one way of doing it. The other way, and a slightly more expensive thing to do, is have at least some portion of the team members sort of physically go across other locations on the project. That helps people understand what really happens on that side of the team. And and I've seen this myself when I went. I didn't realize when somebody on the call was saying that today it was really cold, because I was sitting in Bangalore and trying to work with the team there. And when I came into the U.S. and I saw the winter here, the way it was near Chicago, I mean, I was really stunned by. I mean, I was just not expecting that kind of cold. And then I could understand why somebody came late on a call, because he was stuck in snow. I mean, so those are also the kind of things which help collaboration and help people connect with each other. And as long as you are able to make that connection possible, I think the team can do a good job. And then you have a lot of technology which supports, the vicariously you could still be seeing somebody, and like I'm sitting somewhere running this seminar and Rafael is sitting in other. So the technology helps us connect as well. So we have video conferences and chat messengers and those things which if we leverage properly, geographically dispersed teams can enjoy working on an Agile project as well.
Thank you, Kedar. It looks like that's the last question that we have time for today. Once again, I would like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you found it interesting and informative. If you have additional questions or would like a copy of the slide shown today, please contact us by phone. It's 919-405-1500, or by visiting us on the web at sapiensdecision.com to listen to the webinar recording. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you, Rafi and Kedar.
Thanks.
Thank you, Daphna.
Thank you. Thanks, Daphna. Thanks, Rafi. Bye. Bye.
Bye.